And you're going to lead us into this story?
Yeah, well, we're live now.
Oh, okay.
It's Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, and it's time for Real Unfiltered Talk with James Bryant and two-time world champion, heck of a nice guy, going with the teal blue tonight, Mr. Dion Hibden. Dion, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Trying to brighten things up a little bit.
Brighten it up.
Teal blue.
You know, it's we've got this great kind of weather going right now where it's 40 in the morning and 90 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, welcome to Missouri, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
We are at the beautiful Lake of the Ozarks. We are in the beginning of the start of maybe a fall pattern. Maybe.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That, as those temperatures drop, things are getting a little bit better. Starting to see some big fall tournaments showing up. Had a couple of really good fundraisers this last week.
Yeah. Yep.
You want to touch on those any at all?
Yeah, it was a good weekend. They whacked them pretty good. The Cops and Bobbers took 24 to win. That's pretty dang special as far as I'm concerned. Anytime you catch them that good this time of year, that's pretty special.
That's two of my limits.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that's getting it. Yeah.
But they had two big ones, had a 7 and another one that was almost 7. So that helps out the day, and everybody said, "Oh, well, they had 2, of course they had 24." Well, they still had 3 that weighed 12, so any way you tally it up, they caught them really. So, it was a good weekend. They caught a lot of fish. I went to the weigh-in. Lawson finished 5th. He had 1690. There was another 19-pound stringer by a local guy who actually lives up the river. So I would say that the river was on a little bit because that tournament went out of Red Oak.
Right.
And then
so those that don't know the Lake of the Ozarks, it's about 100 miles long, and that's about at the 36-ish, somewhere in that way,
mid-lake.
36 miles up the lake. So it's a good area where you can kind of diversify and catch all the aspects if you want to go any direction you want, basically.
And then they had another tournament out of PB2, out of the Ronald McDonald tournament. And what did it take to win it? 18.
So
18
to 24 pounds. So it's the night bite's dying off and the big day bite's coming on. So
it is. Lawson fished last Wednesday and finished second with, like 13 pounds or something crazy like that. Took about 15 to win. That Embry boy, he's been winning. What's his first name?
Chris,
yeah.
Yep. Chris, I'm amazed that I remember myself, but we got that.
He's won two weeks in a row on the Wednesday nighters. And he's been catching them good. He had 16 one weekend. I'm not sure what he had last Wednesday, but yeah, that's kind of going by the wayside. Things are starting to get shallower. Yep. The fish are starting to move up a little bit, get shallower, getting around those shad and stuff like that.
Sounds good.
So, typical
Sounds good.
Fall.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody online for watching us live. We got a good turnout tonight, and I never really do this, but a little housekeeping. Make sure you go into YouTube and like and subscribe us and follow us along. We do the live show on Facebook, and we're up on YouTube, and then you can go to Apple Podcasts and listen to that later. If you're driving down the road, you can download and listen to us tell our stories.
Sure. So
speaking of stories, I don't know how far into the weeds I want to get with this, but I think I owe everybody that's been listening to us for the last couple of weeks an apology. And that's really, I don't apologize for about anything, but I think I got a little caught up in the moment. So we talked about last week after the show, and I think I've come to the conclusion that I don't really care or give a crap about the bass tournament industry anymore. So I don't. I mean, all this rules and changes and crap. I think we need to get back to what we do best, and that's telling stories and talking fishing and helping guys find more fish and have a little fun on the lake. So your thoughts?
I'm the same way. It's kind of like the presidential election. We got very little to do with it. We got to see it and we got to watch it and we got to be a part of it.
And you get to vote.
Yeah, you get to vote.
One vote. Yeah.
But really, with where bass fishing's going right this minute, I think we have no say so.
Yeah.
We just need to gotta sit back and watch it play out.
And not to get too long into it, but I think where I kind of got hung up in the disconnect with our listeners, and maybe we didn't, but I think we did a little bit. I haven't fished at the level that you have, but we fished hard.
Sure.
And I think a lot of our listeners don't. I mean, I think we're just a little more invested and maybe want to get a little deeper into those weeds, and it's just not necessary. So we'll get back to the good stuff.
You can get all you want on YouTube.
And again, we've always wanted to be unfiltered, but not doing what everyone else is doing. So we're not going to talk about that crap anymore. So that's it. So we'll do an industry news section about 5 minutes, and For industry news this week, all 3 tournament trails have their own set of rules, and if you want to go fish them, go online, check them out, and go fish them.
That's right.
And there's all kinds of techniques and styles, and it's going to be interesting to see which ones stand out this year. And that's really about it.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, if you like one, fish one. If you like the other, fish the other. It doesn't matter. It's they're all basically the same. When everybody gets it through their head that you're fishing for your own money, anyways. Everybody could have a really nice jackpot tournament.
Did you say fishing for your own money?
Yeah,
you put it in, you get it back, and that's that.
Everybody put in $100, winner take all. And that's basically the way bass fishing has been for many, many years. So like I say, if everybody would just get that in their head and go fish the one they want to fish, and just be happy. Just suck it up and go do what you do.
Yep. Shameless plug this week. As usual, we want to thank everyone that's helped us out along the way, and a big shout out to Lloyd Morgan at Hiawatha Beach Resort. Lloyd's our one and only sponsor, so we're kind of happy to have him on board. Right. And if you're down here at the Lake of the Ozarks and want to go up to Little Buffalo, go check him out. He's got some wonderful ice cream when it's warm and gasoline, and he's kind of a nice guy.
Yeah,
when he wants to be.
Got some tackle.
No, he is. He's a nice guy.
You can go in there, on the water. There's very few places on the lake where you can go in and buy tackle. Yep. He's actually got tackle in there. So.
And he's a bass guy, so it's not, you can't go in there and it's like one rusty rooster tail. It's with an old dusty package.
No,
it's dusty old spinner baits. But if you need one, got them.
That's right.
Ron Sisk is watching online. He is one of our faithful live guys, and I hear today he's sick. So Ron, thanks for watching. Thank you for not bringing the COVID here to the studio. Right. We appreciate that. If that's what you've got, if it's the cooties, I'm glad you're not bringing that either. So, geez.
That's right.
So, thought I'd mix it up a little bit tonight, and it's story night.
Okay.
So, kind of to preface this a little bit, Dion and I were driving down the road one day, and we were actually going to Arkansas, and you started reminiscing about how many times you've driven to Ranger going down from Missouri to Arkansas on 5 Highway, and we started telling stories. And in the middle of the stories, I said, hey, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen? He's like, well, why don't you go first? And I said, okay. I saw the Space Shuttle Columbia crash in whatever year it was, and it's 2000, 2001, somewhere there, 2000, I think. And I was in Texas on Sam Rayburn when it crashed, and we told a story about it. And Dion responded, well, I got you beat. He said, I saw Challenger crash while I was in Florida. And I said, You got it. You kidding me? And I said, that's amazing that 2 guys in a car have both seen 2 different shuttles crash while fishing. Really, what are the odds?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. And then I woke up this morning because the moral of the story is he had one story that was even better. And tonight, I think it's more fitting because it's 9/11. And when we finished that story, he said, I have you beat one more time. And I said, well, what was that? And he said, I was in New York in 9/11. And I went, get out of here. Fishing? He said, yes, fishing. And he told me the story. And I thought, because it's 9/11, it's Wednesday, we pushed our guest back because I thought this would be a great story tonight to tell on 9/11 about 9/11. So to preface this a little bit, in the year 2000 was the year you won the FLW championship. 44 pounds, 11 ounces, 5 fish limit in less than 9 minutes on the final day. That's true, correct?
Right.
I read that. See, I did not know that. On the final day going in, you caught your limit in less than 9 minutes. Pretty much the winning limit, correct?
Yeah, nobody else caught a limit the last day.
Correct. So that was a $250,000 payday. It was great. So here we go. We move into 2001, go through the season, doing well. I think you cashed a few checks. I didn't really look, but at the end of the season.
Made the championship.
Yep. The championship was to be held September 12th through the 15th on Lake Champlain in New York.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to start this story probably September the 8th, somewhere in that ballpark. You're pre-fishing on Champlain.
Sure.
And can you give everybody some insight on kind of what the pre-fishing world was doing back then in 2001?
Well, to start back, Lake Champlain is one of my favorite places, one of my favorite fisheries that I've ever been to, ever. And back then it had a lot less fishing pressure than it does nowadays. And it was truly an awesome place. You could still look and find fish that I truly believe possibly I had never seen a fishing bait before. And at that point in time, the tournament had progressed on. The it seemed like I won every world championship that I've won. I won the year before the prize money went up the very next year. So it was the first year that we were going to fish for $1 million, and we love Lake Champlain anyways. And I told my family, and at that point in time, we were traveling in a motorhome. You know, we pulled our stuff around with a 40-foot motorhome, and my dad had
as
one,
was your father, yes.
and that's how we traveled. You know, and so basically that being in September, you know, before school starts and everything else, I took my whole family up there, and we spent about a week just fishing, practicing, and it was just like what I had hoped it would be. The fish, the big largemouth, were in a little isolated patch of milfoil grass. If you could find some that was slightly a little bit deeper, a lot of the milfoil came clear to the surface, and that was the real obvious stuff. And it was actually getting a little fishing pressure, and you could catch lots of threes and stuff like that out of that, and occasionally a 4-pounder. But I figured out, you know, about the second day I was there, me and Dad both kind of figured out that if you could find that grass on your depth finder that was about 5 foot deep, and you couldn't see it really, really good, but if you could find those little tiny places out off of the major grass beds and stuff, that's where those big ones really were at. I found a school of fish that that I couldn't believe, and when I say that, I actually took my dad up there the day before the tournament in the dark, the last day we had to practice, so we could mark it on his GPS. That way, both of us had it marked on our GPS. And in 35 years of doing it with my dad, that's the only time that I was ever in the boat with him and said, right there they live, you know. And
he wasn't really a believer initially,
oh
was he?
no, no, not right off. Yeah. You know, he's like, sure, you know, I'm catching lots of 4-pounders too, you know. And I said, no, these aren't 4-pounders. I said, these are bigger than that. And he said, well, don't bruise them, you know. And I said I caught them the one time. That's the only time I've been there. And I said, but I think that you need to go see where it's at, mark it on your GPS, just in case you draw out before me. Right. I said, because if one of us lands on it, one of us is going to win the tournament. And
now you felt at that time from practicing and finding this unbelievable school of fish that you knew in your heart that this was a back-to-back championship.
Oh yeah, there was no doubt in my mind. I was going to weigh in 25 pounds a day, you know, and I don't ever get that feeling very often, you know, but I could catch 20 pounds a day on crappy stuff. Right. What everybody was fishing, I could catch 20 pounds a day, and had 2 or 3 of these little isolated places where there was some 5s and some 6s and stuff like that. And that far north, that's a premium, you know. And I thought, you know, well, I go catch 20, and then I pull out there and I catch 2 of those big ones. Now I got 24, 25, you know, every day, and I can milk this to where, you know, I can put out the stringer that nobody's ever seen up there, and
I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you and your dad snuck out later, you know, I mean, so no one could see you. And actually, you had him
we went out the last day of practice an hour before daylight.
Right.
It was dark.
Yeah, so you could go show him physically.
So I could go take him to it and show him to it. And I took him to it in his boat. That way we could mark it on his GPS. I already had it marked on mine. And it was a spot about a half an acre big, something like that. But none of it was exposed. So that's what was nice about it. If you weren't really looking for it and hunting for it, you'd never see it. But we pulled up there, and I got pretty well lined up on it in the dark as best I could, you know, because it's in the middle of the lake, and a lot of that stuff's offshore. And I got as close as I could get, and you know, turned on my depth finder, and I said, well, this has got to be it right here. And we sat there in the dark, couldn't hear a boat, nobody's out there. I mean, it's just us. A lot of guys didn't even practice on the last day just because, you know, they'd been there for a whole week and
knew what they were going to do.
Yeah, and I just basically wanted to show Dad this spot, and I told him, I said, this is it. I said, we're on it, and he said, well, how can you tell? I can't even see your lineups. I said, I'm just positive this is it, and he said, let's go. That's good. He said, that's good enough. I'll come back here and find out. I said, no. I said, you have to have the same confidence I have. I said, put your jig in the lake. He's sitting in the passenger seat and he just flops a jig over the side of the boat and feeds it line. And he tightens up and it's dark. It's in the nighttime basically. And he says, well, I got one. I said, well, hell, jerk at him. Let's see what he looks like. And he catches one right at 7 pounds. And when he pulls it up, he pulled the fish to the surface. And I don't know if it was because it was dark or what, but he pulls it up and he's like, oh my God, it's a giant. And I said, yeah. I said, that's all there is here. And you can see bubbles just start rolling up everywhere, all around the boat. And he's like, holy crap, what is that? And I said, I guess that's a school of fish. And they came to the surface and started schooling. And there was about an acre of them on the surface at one point in time. And they're all 5 to 7 pounders, and they're just up schooling on the surface, just eating them yellow perch. And so needless to say, we crank up, we idle away from it real slow. We did all this without our lights on, so nobody could even see the lights out there in the middle of the lake.
Which we don't encourage, but in tournament fishing,
but
you got to do what you got to do.
When you're fishing for $1 million, you're going to be sneaky.
You're going to violate a rule every now and then. To get penalized. No, I'm kidding.
He was in the boat with me, and we were within about 10 miles of one of my other little spots. And I said, hell, let's run over there before it gets real late. And I said, I'll show you the other spot. We ran over to it, and we got out in front of this big grass bed. And sure enough, here's a spot that's about twice the size of my boat. And once again, it's under the surface. You can't see it. And the grass only comes up to about 8 foot of the surface. And same way is every time a jig hit in it, you're catching a 5 pounder. And
this wasn't like ultra scientific method.
No,
it's just throw a jig,
20-pound line, 3/4 ounce jig with a Guido bug on the back of it, and drop it down through the grass. And when it gets through the grass, one had it.
Yeah, you're not punching match. You're not working the outside or inside line. There wasn't any secret to it. They were just. Sometimes when you're fishing, you find fish. You just gift the fish gods give you a
once we figured it out. Once we kind of figured out that that's the kind of spots they were in, then that's all we hunted for. We quit going up into that grass where we could catch 20 pounds. We stayed out on the outside of it, finding those little tiny spots, little isolated spots, and we had a half a dozen spots between the two of us that had those caliber of fish on them. And so, we were pretty confident. We were had the boat back on trailer by about 10 o'clock working on our tackle, and was ready to go the next day. And
that was, that final day was September the 10th.
Yes.
Because tournament was on September the 12th. So.
That was September 11th. We were out there practicing that day. That was on September 11th.
Okay, that was the 11th. Okay.
That was the last day we could be on the water.
So you were getting off the water, then you were going to go to pairings that night.
Yes. Yes.
So,
we were out on the water, and my wife called, and which she never does, and she said, "Have you heard?" And I said, "Heard what?" And she says, "The Twin Towers just got hit in a terrorist attack." And I'm like, "What?" And really, Twin Towers did not. I'm in the middle of Lake Champlain catching 5 pounders. It's not registering to me. What? What are you talking about? She said something bad's happening. She said, you need to come in. She says, I don't know what's going to take place. And she was scared, and hell, I've got my 3 little boys with me and my mom and dad and we're all the way in New York. We got to end up in Missouri at some point in time. And by the time we get in, it's all over the news. The Pentagon had been hit, everything, all of the strikes had been happened. The one was, had crashed in Pennsylvania, and basically everything that was going to happen had happened. And they're talking about martial law and stuff like this and different things. And, we're 1,400 miles from home. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing about it was my dad, when we got to the house and we're listening to it on the radio going to the house, he said, okay, the first thing we're doing is we got to go gas up the motorhomes, because they didn't know what they was going to do to gas prices or anything else. So we got back to the house we just left all of our tackle and crap as it was. Now we're supposed to fish for $1 million the next day, but we left everything as is. We unhooked the motorhomes from the sewers and everything. We ran down to the local gas station and we put, 180 gallons in both motorhomes and tanked them clear full, as full as we could get them. And then we came back and then we went to the meeting, and when we got to the meeting, they really don't know what to do. The tournament, I mean, what do you do? Yeah, we're 180 miles from New York City, but still, it's
this is a national emergency.
50 guys from all over the world are in New York. Yeah,
100. Yeah, 50 pros, 50 co-anglers.
Yeah, 50 pros, 50 co-anglers are a long ways away from home, and they've officially shut off the airlines. No air travel. And so, here's 100 guys standing around wondering how everybody's getting home.
Well, let's back up a little bit. So the tournament officials did decide.
The tournament officials ended up deciding they could not. There's no way they could have it. That would make everybody look bad, and besides that, nobody knew what was going to go on.
And there was a lot of uncertainty.
So we were all going home. And, and it was kind of funny. My dad says, "Oh, yeah, I knew I was going home. I didn't know about you guys, but I am going home." Yeah.
It's not worth $1 million, huh?
No. He says, "I'll come fish another day, but not here." And yes. You think about New York, I was in New York, but like I say, I'm 150 miles away from the city. Right. I'm in as remote an area in New York as New York gets.
But close enough to know.
Close enough to know that we had a long ways to go home.
Yep.
And and I had a wife and 3 little kids to think about. And
with that being said, at that moment, I kind of want to paint a picture, because we've told the story to each other a few times. I'm going to steal in your story a little bit. Now imagine you've got 100 anglers that are down on the ground, and every pro has probably brought a truck and a boat, or truck and boat motorhome, because that was a trend in 2000.
Yeah, there was a few of us.
There was a few that had motorhomes, but realistically, there were 40, 60 guys that were stranded in New York.
That was in limbo.
Yeah, they could not get out, could not go, and had no way to get home to their families.
Yeah.
And nor did you guys really even know what was going on in the other states at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, of course they had some contact, but it wasn't like it was today.
Yeah, people were calling their families and stuff like that, and some of the guys in Arkansas, oh man, they've shut down gas stations in Arkansas and this and that. Well, Arkansas is pretty close to Missouri, and Dad had already made the statement. He said, "Well, we can get home." And I said, "Well, we can with the motorhomes," but I said, "What about the boats and the trucks?" He said, "Oh, I don't care." He said, "Somebody in Iowa can keep them. Why do I care?"
Right.
And we had already decided that we would abandon anything that wouldn't get us home. But anyways, we sat around and we talked about it, and it took them an hour and a half to have the the pre-tournament meeting, explaining what they were going to do, and they were calling it off, and everybody was going to go home, and so we come up with the idea, hey, we got a 40-foot motorhome. We can carry home quite a few guys, if you guys want to ride home with us, so
expecting to be a few,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And first thing I know, I mean, we've got a whole group of people that's going to ride home with mom and dad in their motorhome, and me and my wife and kids in my motorhome, and so
how many you think you had?
Oh, I don't know. We probably had 10 extras in ours, in mine, and Dad probably had 8 or 9 in his. And they're couples. Most time it's a husband and their wife, because it's World Championship. Most guys brought their wives and stuff. So we had a pretty good group. We got in. Everybody got in the next morning. We got everybody to where they were ready to go, and Dad says, "Okay, show up here, be there or be left, one of the two." And pretty much everybody was standing there waiting with their bag, what few suitcases they had, and we loaded the boats clear full of suitcases and stuff like that, and we had vehicles also that we pulled our boats with, and so we loaded everything down, and everybody got in the motorhome, and I asked for a show of hands on who knew how to drive.
Let me interject there, because we got to back up a little bit, because you've got in the story, but I'm going to fill in the gaps here a little bit. So Dion Hibdon just told a story about the stringer of his lifetime. Knew he was going to win another world championship. Felt good about it, and the world kind of made a change. And it's not being selfish, but that really sucks, I mean, as a bad deal.
Sure.
All the way around. But, so you weren't the happiest camper in the world at this point. Not upset that happened, but I mean, that's devastating all the way around. Not scared, the world's changing, but on the same token as you put your life's work into a world championship and it's taken away.
Yeah.
So you weren't probably more exhausted, maybe wore out.
Yeah. You was all keyed up, and
last thing you want to do is drive.
Yeah. I was super keyed up, ready to go. I feel like I do a couple of things in bass fishing really, really good. And pitching a jig in milfoil is probably one of my favorite things to do. And I feel like I know how to do that as well as anybody. So it was really playing into me and my dad's hands in that tournament. I really think we would have been, right there at the top of the pack, before the tournament was out. And then just all of a sudden, okay, we're going home. I was a little upset, but I think it was the fact that I had gotten myself so keyed up on going, and then all of a sudden all the testosterone just kind of runs out of your body.
Right.
And it's like the end of the tournament and it never even started, and we got,
it took everything out of you.
It just took everything out of you. Yeah. I was thinking, okay, this is going to change my kids' lives. I'm going to win $1 million this week, or I've got a good chance of winning $1 million, and like I say, just all of a sudden it's gone, but when you watched it on TV, it was just as crazy to watch then as it is today. I watched the deal this morning on it, and, to see those people wandering around with all that dust on them and stuff, it was weird. It was hard to think about, and here all we could think about was, oh, we're just going to drive home.
Right.
Those people had no homes to go to.
Right.
And many, many people, thousands of people died. And, all we had to do was figure out how to get home.
Yeah. But we forget, and I think that's why I chose today to have the story. We forget because, I had forgotten about it. There were extortion at gas stations, and they were, jamming the prices way up, and getting home was not an easy task.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that you got to get people home, trying to get them home at the same token. So you get in the motorhome, the first thing you do is show hands, and you ask them.
I got in the motorhome, and I told my wife, I said, I'm worn out, and it was just exhaustion of getting everything packed and ready to go back, and the fact that we weren't going to get to go fishing and stuff like that. And I was just worn out, and I said, hey, I said, I'm just going to tell you all right now, if you're going to ride in this rig, somebody's going to drive and help me out. I said, who in this rig could drive this thing? And one guy raised his hand. He says, I'm an over-the-road truck driver. I said, batter up, Buttercup. I said, you're behind the wheel right now. I said, I don't care if I drive between here and Missouri. And my wife was there, and she was figuring out where people were at, because there were people we were going to drop off in Ohio and Illinois and stuff like that. But the bulk of the people we hauled home were like Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, stuff like that.
Because that's where all the great bass fishermen come from.
Yeah, that's where all the great bass fishermen are. We did pack up. A lot of the fishermen did pack up and actually run the highway together. We had some pretty big caravans going down through there with 8 or 10 boats at a time. The fishermen did. We did try to all stick together, a little bit. And they damn sure wanted to follow Dad and Mom because they knew they were packing good.
Packing
weapons, guns.
Yeah, I was going to say, packing good. Yeah, got it.
If there's anybody needs to be shot, my mom needs to be in the lead.
Gotcha.
Because she's always packing.
Gotcha.
And a damn good shot.
You think she's still carrying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Even more than ever.
All right.
She's got cooler equipment now than she used to have.
Yeah.
She used to just carry a great big ass pistol. It was big.
She called me again yesterday.
Couldn't hardly get it in her purse.
We'll have that discussion later.
But yeah, now she's got a little hammerless that she carries, and But anyways, it was kind of cool to see everybody kind of stick together.
Yeah.
We could all been like rats on a ship going down. We could all scattered like rats, and not stuck together, but fishermen are, we figured we'll make it home somehow.
Yep. And the end of the story is you did.
We did.
And
we made it home.
There was some good times.
Most everybody got home.
Most everybody? Would you leave a couple of them on the roadside? Or?
Oh, there was a couple of them I thought I needed to. But we still drug them on home.
That's funny.
Some people stayed a few extra days, when we got to the house because their family couldn't come and get them and stuff like that. But
sure.
But anyways, yeah, lifelong friends.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
There is what I think is probably one of the better of. I mean, some of your stories are actually pretty good, and that one, I think it was true.
Most of it was true.
And
yeah,
most of it was true. Yeah, so it's good. So I mean, again, it's solemn day at 9/11, but I thought that was the most appropriate story that we could tell today. That's not talking about LiveScope.
Yeah.
So
I think and you ride that long with strangers, and they're not all strangers that rode with us. I'd fished with some of them. Some of them I knew.
You see them.
But yeah, you see them, but you don't know those people. Well, you get in a truck for a 40-foot motorhome with 8 or 10 people. Yeah, you get to know everybody before you get home. You know things about them you don't want to know before it's over with.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, we had it was different. Everybody kind of hung together. It was a worrisome time. I mean, everybody was it was scary. I'll tell you right up front. I kept my gun loaded. I kept it loaded, and it was laying on the console.
What was your fear? Terrorist or somebody hijacking your stuff?
No, somebody wanting our stuff.
Yeah.
And when I say wanting our stuff, we're in a house.
Yeah.
We're in a 40-foot house rolling down the road.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to encounter.
Yeah.
People, setting at gas pumps. We did see that on several occasions coming home. There was places where the lines for gas were clean out onto the interstate. People waiting to get gas. And luckily enough, between the boats and the trucks, we had enough fuel that, we could make it, in between the gas stops where we had time, had trouble with. But we basically pulled in, got gas about everywhere we stopped, But
that reminds me, and we're going to shift gears now because there's really nothing else to say about that, is there?
Nope, not really.
I remember the guy's name. Who drove the big Cadillac or the big giant Lincoln?
Jimmy Crisp.
Jimmy Crisp. I don't know if you guys remember Jimmy Crisp or not. Jimmy
Mayor
Crisp.
of Seymour, Missouri.
Yep. So, a story you guys were going through was it Tennessee?
Was going through Atlanta.
Here's a life hack, and I tell you what, you always see that on the internet now. Here's a hack, here's a way you can do this or do that. But so this Jimmy Crisp, he had this big 4-door car he towed his boat with, and
Jimmy Crisp drove the largest Chrysler car I think ever made. He won one of the first $100,000 tournaments on Table Rock Lake that was ever held. Jimmy won the thing, and he was going to start fishing the circuit the next year. And
he owned a hardware store, lumber yard, or something.
It was something to do with lumber.
Yeah,
or he was a lumberjack, or something.
Maybe
like
he was. Maybe he had tree service. I don't know. Anyway,
but you couldn't have had, and I recognize rednecks because I know I am one. Okay, Jimmy wore a 3-button-up shirt in the front, pullover shirt that was literally too tight every day of his life. The same kind white shirt, and it had a Berkeley, a Trilene sticker right here, and that's the only signage that he would wear on himself. Shirt a little too tight. Jimmy had a little bit too much beer to drink most nights, so he had a little pot gut on him, and he kept his cigarettes rolled up right here in his sleeve. I don't care if he was walking into the Bassmasters Classic. That's how Jimmy Crisp went.
You would know him anywhere.
You knew him when you seen him coming down the pike. Well, when he won $100,000 all at one fatal time, he went a little hog wild on when he bought him a car.
Yep.
And he bought this Chrysler car, and it was as long as my boat and truck when it was sitting out there, and a big 4-door car had like some 455 something Chrysler, but then it was a car, so it didn't have a big gas tank. It had about a 20-gallon gas tank. So needless to say, Jimmy...
It was probably getting 6 miles a gallon, too.
Oh, yeah, Jimmy could not pass a gas station. And when I say that, because he was in Seymour, Missouri, which is only about an hour and a half south of us, he wanted to travel with Dad because he felt like Dad was one of his people. Just as big a redneck as anybody
like you
else.
said, and you're traveling as the brotherhood of fishermen.
And we did, and we took Jimmy.
Hit the road together.
We took Jimmy under our wing, and Jimmy traveled with us just fine. The only problem with it was you didn't have to worry about ever have to go pee because you had to stop about every 20 minutes, and because Jimmy had to have more gas. And we were going into Atlanta, and we were going to try to get through Atlanta that night and get to the other side going to Okeechobee. But it's going to be really close to hitting rush hour. Well, the fastest way to go through Atlanta is just go right through the middle and just go as fast as you can and keep up with traffic. And every one of us, there was 5 of us on the CB, me, Dad, OT, Peter T, Kenyon Hill. We were all on the CB, and we all asked him multiple times, Jimmy, do you have enough gas to make it through Atlanta? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. Got it.
Hey, for you young guys watching, CB's called a Citizens Band radio. It was way before cell phones.
That's right.
And it was attached with a big cord, and you had a big antenna in the back of your car, and you squeezed it. And if you watch TV and they said Breaker 19,
that's right.
That's a CB. So for all you young snots that have no idea what we're talking about, yeah, it was a CB radio.
We get 3/4 of the way.
Did you have 8-track tape too?
Oh, I'm sure Jimmy did. Jimmy probably did. Yeah, I think my truck had like a cassette or something.
Yeah, you're uptown.
Yeah, not an 8-track.
Yeah, okay.
But
so anyway,
we get about 3/4 of the way.
Gas. Yeah.
We get about 3/4 of the way through Atlanta, and traffic stops. We have been caught. It is in. We have been caught, and needless to say, that big Chrysler that Jimmy was driving, it got even worse gas mileage while it was sitting idling than when it was running 80 mile an hour.
It did the same one way or another.
It didn't matter. You was getting about 5 miles per gallon. It did not matter. And we're sitting there, and I'm sitting there. Jimmy's right in front of me. We always kept Jimmy in the middle because Jimmy was not familiar with the roads, and he could possibly get lost and led astray. So we always kept him in the middle. I was behind him, and we're sitting there stopped, and I've already thrown my truck up into park. We're sitting there parked. And next thing I see his taillights flash once. Then I see him flash again. And then they flash again, and they stay on. And I thought, oh, no.
He ran out of gas.
He's run out of gas. He's sat right there and run out of gas. And I pick up the radio, and I said, Jimmy, you all right? And he's like, no, my car stalled out. I said, Jimmy, did you run out of gas? He looks, and apparently he looks at the gauge and he's like, yeah, I think so. I'm like, holy crap. Needless to say, OT Fears has it in his brain. We can get it out of the boats. We can get one of it out of the boats. So we got to find something to put the gas in. So we get like a 2-liter soda bottle, and we go back to my boat. We pull the hose off my motor, and through the prime bulb, we start filling this 2-liter bottle. 2-liter bottle.
You done it. One guy in the crowd says, "Done it."
we fill it about 4 times, run it back and forth to Jimmy's car. Well, needless to say, after about the second fill up, we go back and we're filling it the third time, and that's when traffic starts flowing. And here we sit, 6 boats in a row, right in the middle of Atlanta, parked right in the middle of the interstate, and Dad says, hell with them. They'll just have to go around us, He says, I ain't moving. And we sat right in the right-hand lane of traffic in downtown Atlanta and carrying 2-liter pop bottles, and finally got down to where, it was just me carrying the pop bottles. Nobody else felt safe filling up Jimmy's car. And so, yeah, there was times where things went awry.
But there's a life hack if you ever are in a bind. Because sometimes there's something that's so common be right in front of you. We talked, first few episodes talked about, you always have to have your toilet paper in a Ziploc bag or peanut butter jar because once it gets moist, you can't wipe your rear.
That's right.
But I never thought if I got low on gas, I could steal it out of my boat. And you can.
Prime bulb.
Yeah. But you gotta have something to put it in, like you said.
I think it's easy. I think it might be easier now because you got electric fuel pumps. You could
Possibly.
turn the key on, And,
yeah, but that's past it.
It's going the wrong direction.
It'd be going the wrong direction. It'd be
you
pulling
just got to
it.
know which hose to pull off.
That's true. The other, you pull the cowling, I guess.
That's
You want to
right.
really get technical, and you can pump it, but whoo, yeah. But still, if you're in a bind, it's not sticking it down and siphoning it.
No,
You have a ball to squeeze too. So
that's right.
That sounded bad.
Yeah,
And
that's
squeeze
right.
your balls to get some fuel. So
Suck
yeah.
on it.
So yeah, I had to end it. I had to end it on a better note.
There
You
you
know. So there's a fun.
Jimmy was the sweetest guy you ever wanted to be around. But I mean, about a 6'2", 280-pound, slick back hair. Always real shiny hair from where he had too much
dippity doo.
pomade on it.
Pomade or dippity doo.
And the other cool thing about it was he was definitely scared
Brill
of
cream.
snakes.
Yeah, Brill cream.
Yeah.
Remember the song?
Yeah.
You want to sing it?
No, I can't. I don't know it that well.
It was Brill cream, a little dazzle do ya?
That's right. There
There
you
you go. See, I'm only 53
But,
and knew that one.
Jimmy carried around a shotgun in his boat too because he's deathly scared of snakes. And we got to we got out to Grand Lake of the Cherokees, and the fish were up in the bushes, the water was up in the bushes, and so were the snakes. And you did not have to worry about where Jimmy was at because you could hear him because the shotgun was going off periodically. And we come in after the last day of practice. I said, "You gonna make it all right, buddy?" "Yeah, hell yeah." He says, I guess it depends on who I draw, And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I guess if he doesn't want me shooting him." And I said, "Well, I bet if you're the one with the shotgun, he won't care, And he says, "Well, that's kind of the way I look at it, And well, apparently, the word kind of got out, and somebody told the tournament director, and the tournament director came to Jimmy and said, "Hey, I hear that you've been shooting snakes out on the water." Jimmy's like, "Well, who would you heard that from?" And he just dummied up. It was perfect. I mean, he just
What are you talking about?
"I don't know what the hell you're talking about, And he says, "Well, you can't be doing that during the tournament." Jimmy's like, "Oh, okay, whatever. I don't know what you're talking about, And needless to say, we get out of the meeting, and Jimmy says, "Hey, Guido," he says, "you got to stop me by Walmart on the way out of town." And we were staying in a little cabin on the way out of town, and we pull into the Walmart store, and sure enough, Jimmy runs in there, and Dad's thinking, he's going in to get him some Gatorade or something like that. Oh, no, walks out with a case of shotgun shells. Not just a box or two. He's got a full case of shotgun shells towed up. And Dad looks at him when he walks out the door, and he says, "Are those shotgun shells?" I said, "I believe those are shotgun shells." He said, "Well, it's quite apparent he don't care what the tournament director thinks." I said, "Are you going to tell him not to take it?" And he said, "Nope, could care less, And it was the same way the next day. You could tell if Jimmy was in your creek, you'd hear boom, 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 And, but.
So does audible noise affect the bass fishing?
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Apparently
Just
not.
curious. Anyway, yeah. Got a guy comment on. He said kind of like Shorty Evans. Do you know Shorty?
I knew Shorty Evans.
He says is that kind of
Shorty Evans was a piss cutter. Now I'm telling you,
what's a piss cutter?
he was an old.
That's a word I haven't heard before.
He was an old man forever. I took my girlfriend to Las Vegas to the Lake Mead tournament, the U.S. Open, and at that point in time, Shorty was 78. And he hit on my 18-year-old girlfriend sitting in the meeting right next to me.
My man.
Sitting next to me. And here's this little old bald-headed man, and my God, you're a pretty good-looking little old gal, I'm like, "Shorty, that's my girlfriend." He says, "Oh, I don't think you can handle that." And I'm like, "By God, I'm going to try, and I damn sure ain't going to let you try." Shorty Evans, my dad, we were taking off on Lake of the Ozarks. I'll tell you what kind of a rough old character he was. Just rougher than a cob. I mean, little old guy. He had invented a couple different things, so he had a lot of money. Had a lot of money. Drove nice
fishing related or like
no, some of it was fishing related, but
or
still,
did he invent like the
he had made good money in his life,
like the wine cork remover.
Yeah, he had made good money in his life somehow. And we're sitting waiting to take off at Lake of the Ozarks. And my dad idles up to me, and we're running way on up the river. And he says, "Hey," he says, "better put on your raincoat." And at that time,
You're talking about a condom or a rain suit?
Raincoat.
Okay,
no,
gotcha.
Raincoat,
Okay.
rain suit.
Gotcha.
And because I drove around the low end of the lake, Dad drove around the upper end of the lake, and he had actually drove through a little bit of rain up the river. And he said, "You better put your raincoat on." He said, "You get up out Hurricane Deck, so it's going to be raining." And he said, "If you don't want to stop amongst everybody, you better get your suit on." So I get down, put on my rain suit. Shorty Evans pulls up right up next to us. They said, "Hey, boy, why are you putting on that rain suit?" I said, "It's raining up the lake." He says, "How far up the lake?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Dad just told me to put my rain suit on. It's going to rain up the lake." And Shorty always had a very fast boat. He had enough money that his stuff ran better than everybody else's. He had the best of the best. Needless to say, I always prided myself that my stuff ran really well. And Shorty was about 20 boats ahead of me taking off, and he didn't put on his rain suit. You see that old slick bald head. He put her on plane, took off, and I knew I wasn't going to run him down, but I thought, I'm going to catch some of these guys, and I got my rain suit on. I got my little mask on, so I'm going to be able to run in the rain. Round the corner at the Hurricane Deck Bridge, where I can see the Hurricane Deck Bridge, and it's like a monsoon. You can't see the bridge for the rain.
It's the white wall, I call it.
It's the white wall, and
you're
just like, wow, good call, Dad. Way to go, Dad, And as I get to Shorty Evans getting back on plane, he had stopped long enough to strip off all of his clothes. He had stripped clear down. His partner is pulling on his rain suit. Shorty has stripped down, and I'm pretty sure I seen his doohickey as he was sitting back down.
Butt naked.
I'm talking naked.
Naked. Got it.
Sat back down, got on plane, and we raced for the next 20 miles up the river. And that old rain just beating the hell out of that poor old man. And here he is buck naked.
Thank goodness he was behind the console, because, man, those things are needles on your face. I can't even imagine if it got you anywhere else.
Me in full rain gear, and he had them old raindrops just bouncing off his old head. And I intentionally ran along with him for a long time just so I could see him get pelted, I get in that night, and he says, "Gosh dang, I wish I'd listened to you and your dad." I'm like, I said, "You seem to take it well."
I mean, I think I know the obvious answer, but
I said, "Did your skivvies get wet this morning?" He says, "Nope, had everything dry. When I got to where I was going," he says, "I was perfectly dry." Yeah. Stood up, fished for about 30 minutes naked, and then got out and put the clothes on. Like, there you go. But he was just a tough old bird. He won. Only tournament I ever seen him win was on Okeechobee, and they were spawning down in Bay Bottom, and he figured out how to catch them out in the open, away from everybody else, and he caught like 35 pounds a day. Had like 5 that weighed 35 a day, and Dad was catching them good. Dad was catching like 25 pounds a day and made the top 10, and Shorty won by like 20 pounds, and was catching 30 to 35 pounds a day, throwing a big worm down there in Okeechobee, and I'm sure he did part of it naked, as far as I know. but I mean, just a tough old coot. I mean, he really was, and just as nice a man. I mean, just nice and good nice a man as you'd ever want to be around.
I think I'm just gonna have to pick a couple anglers every week, and we're just gonna tell stories.
Walked up to my girlfriend, and like I say, here's my 17-year-old girlfriend. I'm only 17 too. Walks up there, plops down there. "Well, hello there, darling." I'm like, "Shorty, that's my girlfriend." And Shorty was all of 4'11", 4'10", little bitty, looked like a hobbit little dude, and bald-headed.
A Buddha.
Yeah.
You look like a Buddha.
But I mean, just had diamonds on.
Was he skinny?
Huh?
Was he skinny?
He wasn't big.
Okay.
But I mean, he was just a little bitty old, and he wasn't really frail looking.
So if you were 17, that would have been like in, 1968, something like that?
I was a wrestler in school then. I was a bad son of a gun. And here this little old turd pulled up and sat down next to me, going to take my girlfriend. I mean, and I told her, I said, "I'm going to tell you right now, he's got a lot of money. You might be money ahead." She didn't go for it, but she probably would have now.
You didn't even catch that. It was probably in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah. I said 1967.
No, not 67. I was born in 67. Come on. It was in the 80s. It was in the early 80s.
Funny.
But yeah, there's a lot of cool old people. Cool people that are gone, and
I think we need to start talking about them.
Oh, absolutely.
I think so. I think that's what we need to do.
People talk about the greats in the sport. The greats in the sport were not necessarily the guys that caught them.
Yeah.
I mean, there was lots of characters. I mean, lots of characters. Simple as that.
We're going to touch on that. So we're gonna call that, because we burned up almost our night. We're doing good. I told you last week, and I didn't tell the crowd, but we're going to do a big bass bash, kind of a oversight from here until the bash. Every week we're going to do a little rundown. So if you're coming to Missouri, the Big Bass Bash is one of the biggest amateur tournaments you can fish. Fish for $100,000 for one big fish. So how do you catch one big fish? And I know you can't say it. I mean, we don't know. We really don't know. But I think every week it's all about we're going to talk about residential fish. You know, we talked about, if you go back to our old episodes, talk about residential bass and where they live. I think we can kind of guide as we go. And you have to bear with me on this because I've been thinking about it. Because today it is September the 11th, and you guys can go back and listen to this. Water temperature is about 79, 80 degrees, I'd say, roughly.
Yeah.
78. It's starting to drop. So we haven't had any rain. We haven't had any current. So if you were going to go fishing today, Dion, and you wanted to catch one big fish, and some guy came in and said, hey, how do I do it today? Now, mind you, October is the tournament, but we're going to do this every week so we can get to it. You follow me?
Sure.
So we're in a jig bite, aren't we?
Yeah. Today, if I did it today, it would be done with a jig around a boat dock.
Yep. There's not a prevalent topwater bite.
No.
A little bit. There's not really a prevalent spinnerbait bite.
But see, that's the thing. I've actually already done 2 of these pre-deals. One for Bass and Bob and one for another podcast.
Yeah, but I lead you in differently.
That's right.
That's right.
And the crazy thing about it is, I've already been condemned about what I told him the last time in one of the Bass and Bob deals.
Condemned.
Oh, that's not right. They're going to be doing something different by then. Of course they're going to be doing something different by then.
But we're gonna mold you into a pattern.
Sure.
See, that's what we're doing here because we're doing it every week. So no, this is not what's going to win it. Just so we know. But those fish are probably suspended or near the bottom. They're not up shallow yet. They're not up there on the surface chasing shad. They're down there still doing their thing.
When fish kind of want to make their little move in the fall, when we start getting these cool nights and the water's temperature starts easing down real slow, the fish want to go shallow. They want to move up shallow, and so if I was doing it right this minute, it would be probably shallow. I would go pitch a jig and I would put it in a million different places.
But shallow to the bank, not shallow and over deep water, correct?
No, 5 foot or less.
5 foot or less to the bank.
Yeah. Because I think there's a few of those big ones that have already moved up there that are wanting to be up shallow.
Agreed.
Now, when you give it another month,
we're not going to go there. We're talking about just today.
See,
and we're gonna build our PAM. Now next week we're gonna talk about the change.
Sure.
Okay.
And it's going to change.
As you said, a month from now.
It's going to change a little bit.
We're not going to guess it.
Yeah.
We're not going to guess. So right now, those fish are probably, we're guessing, 5 to 7 feet. You want to fish with a jig. The big worm's probably still on.
Yep.
Hey, what's your favorite color of plum, by the way?
Plum?
I had
my favorite color plum.
I had somebody from Bojangles ask.
Yeah, I worked over at Bojangles, and we got 27 plums. Yeah. So
he said, "Hey,
I'm going to say,
what's his favorite shade of plum?"
That June bug plum mix.
But there still is a big worm bite, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Probably.
Yeah, right now you could probably pitch a worm around just as easily could a jig and catch the same fish.
Yeah.
But if I was going to pitch a worm around, it would probably be a 10-inch ribbon tail.
Yeah.
Something bigger.
Yep.
But you're still going to put it in where it needs to be.
Sure.
You're going to have to pitch it back in them dock wells and
on structure,
under the docks.
Probably around some brush.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, around a little bit of brush. And
so we're going to start there. Okay. This week, it's kind of where your focus points need to be if you're out there practicing. And those fish will move and they will change. But today, that's your focus point.
That's right. Don't put too much into it. Don't think too far ahead of time because everything's going to change.
And we're going to hit it again next week and talk about it some more. That's kind of how I think we need to take this.
Okay.
So, and if they move, we're going to tell them where they're going to move. Now, actually, we talked about maybe even going out and hitting the water a little bit together. And I've got some ideas.
It's a little deceiving right this second, because the shallow water hasn't been beaten that hard. I mean, it's pretty fresh to everybody right now. So it's fixing to get beat up a little bit. Every weekend it's going to get.
And next
fished.
week we're going to talk about watercolor a little bit.
There you go.
Because I'm hearing that the lower end is remarkably clear.
Yeah.
And the upper end is kind of a little dirty. Yeah. So we can kind of focus on what end of the lake you're going to fish and how kind of the differences on clarity is. But That's week 1 of 4 on our Big Bass Bash hunt.
There you go.
I call it the Big Bass Hunt.
There you go.
How's that?
That
I
sounds
still,
good.
I still go back, and I told a guy earlier we were messing around with modifying swim baits. Remember that last week? And I said, Dion told me a spot, an area, and a time where I could catch a big fish. And I said, actually, he was there. And I said, that's still going to jack up my mind forever, But he was there. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to just mold you into a good idea.
All right.
So we're not doing the crystal ball. That's just, hey, right now, here's where we're at. This is what we're hearing. Those fish are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and
it's not a crankbait. It's not chatterbait yet.
But that's going to get better.
And we'll talk about it. But
that's
today,
get better.
No, don't try it.
No, today
that ain't the thing.
Today they're still a little slow.
Yep. You have a shameless plug this week?
No, not really.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Hiawatha. That's it. No, I mean, I always have to thank the store for letting us have the facility here because we don't pay rent. We burn their electricity and it's all good. And again, I can't thank Lloyd enough. He's probably our biggest fan.
Yeah.
And and I don't know if you guys know this. I'm not sure how old Lloyd is, but was he in his 80s?
I wouldn't even venture to guess.
How old are you? 78. He said, okay, so he's over 78. I know that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the neat thing about Lloyd has always got good information. He fishes quite a bit. He'll probably fish the deal your dad's fishing tomorrow out of the wet spot.
I hope his fishing partner's not listening right now because he was in the other day and he's like, and you know how he gets frustrated. He's a super nice guy, but when something really gets him going, but he said, I'm kind of a slow, and he's getting older, but he's a slow, meticulous fisherman. He likes to fish slower. Well, this guy he's fishing with now, I'm not sure who it is, but he's fishing fast and he's covering water. So he had that story, and I'm sure you've heard it before from many fishermen. He said, he's skiing my jig. I'm trying to get my jig thrown and skiing behind, so I'm taking out slack, he said, and I hook a fish and I'm like, hey, I'd like to take a look at what this is. He's like, it's not good enough. It's one of those guys, so he was really frustrated this week. And I said, you'll be all right, Lloyd, just don't worry about it. But that's a whole, we can talk about that too. If, you have to have the right partner, the one that can fish the same style. If you got a younger guy that wants to run a gun and you want to take a look at a fish, see what's under that dock, you got to pick it apart a little bit, But
Lloyd's been my biggest fan forever, So
is there? Yeah. No, it's not turning over yet.
No.
Did they run a little water? So I lied. There was some current. So a little bit of current. Must be a hydroelectric power need. Interesting. All right. So there we go. So great night. I mean, how you say it? You don't say Happy 9/11. That's kind of really inappropriate. But it's like, hey, we recognize it, and we want to share that story. It was a great story. Thank you for sharing that, because that is a good life story. We got some hacks, some laughs, a good time.
That's right.
I like the show this way.
Yeah.
It's better than talking about, rules of the professional tournament trails.
Send your comments.
Yeah, give us a call, and
comments.
You can always call me anytime. You can send us comments. You can email us at askarealtalk.com. You can text me. I've put up, I'm pretty sure. Let me look again here. Yeah, the number's on the screen anytime. You can drop me a text, and I'll answer back to you if you got suggestions for the show. I'm not going to listen to them.
Are you? Have you answered my mother yet?
No, she just said good show.
Oh, good.
The only other person was Glenn Mann. He said hello. Gary Mullen said, love the stories. It's great. Edward Grimm says, great. Another good show. We appreciate everybody watching. It's good. See, I'm answering. I'm watching.
Gary Mullins got to be in on traveling with us for a few years. He got to see Lawson at his finest when he was about 6 years old. So he traveled with us a little bit in that time frame too. And so we had a lot of fun with
lot of people watching tonight. I can't thank y'all enough for watching. I could go down the list and call them all out if you want to, but you didn't have a chance to look, but look, this shows you all the people that are watching right now.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a really great turnout online, so we really appreciate that a bunch. And
my wife told Lawson, she says, go help Gary get his bag and bring it into at that time we were staying like in a condo. He said, take him in, show him his room, and needless to say, Gary gets his bag, carries it in. Lawson goes in, jumps up on top of his bed, starts jumping up and down. He says, now you can jump on your bed in motels, but you can't at home. Okay, so you're welcome to jump on this bed. That's all you want, you know. And here, Mullins is a couple years older than I am, you know, and he's like, "Yeah, buddy, I appreciate that, but I probably won't have to jump on it too much." But yeah, that's the way it was around our house.
Right on. So I'm going to close out like I used to. You ready? So it's the rules of navigation at night. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's green to green, red to red. All is well. Go ahead. When in danger or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. So that's it for us at Real Unfiltered Talk. We'll be here next week at 6 p.m. And I don't even know. I've reached out to Stephanie with the Missouri Department of Conservation. We've been playing back and forth. We'll get her in. We're getting close. I've got Jay Beffa that's going to be on. We're going to have him on pretty soon. Next week we've got it's the week after. We've got Tony
Hatton.
Tony Hatton's going to be on. Northern Angler. It's going to be great. You can have him down. So he got some good stuff coming. I'm sure he might have a story or two also.
Probably.
He's not old enough to have good stories.
Oh, he's got some.
But we'll have some stories there. So good stuff lined up coming up the rest of the month, and it's a good show. Appreciate it, Dion. For all of you that tuned in, and for all that you're going to watch, make sure you go to YouTube and check us out. And from all of us at Real Unfiltered Talk, we want to thank you and have a great night. Thanks for watching.